My friend moved to a town where people aren't allowed to take photos. A couple months ago, my best friend, Bryce, moved away to a town I'd never heard of before. He had just landed his dream job. It was gutting, to say the least, but worse than that, he practically ghosted me after that. I sent a few texts here and there, even rang him a few times, but I heard nothing in return. Having been close friends since we were kids, the experience was jarring and definitely shook my trust in friendships as a concept. Thankfully, he recently sent me a text message apologizing for the radio silence and claiming that moving and starting a new position had taken over his headspace. He told me I should visit him in his new haunt, and I enthusiastically accepted. We carved out a week that worked for both of us and planned out the set. Armed with a backlog of Spotify playlists to keep me company, I plugged the address he provided into my GPS and went on my way. It ended up being a lengthy and confusing drive, though. Roads unfamiliar. Finally, I arrived in his neighborhood. I took in the scenery, this new neck of woods and blizzard, to say the least. On the same street, housing tacky-looking trenched homes stood Gothic-looking manors straight out of the Victorian novel. Way too many convenience stores here for such a small community. And did I mention the town center? Well, you wouldn't have it. It was a collection of skyscraper piercing through the clouds that looked seeking than anything I'd ever seen before in my city girl life. The town planner clearly had a fragmented personality. I pulled into the driveway of Bryce's fancy cottage. Really, Bryce? A cottage? Ran up the steps and wrapped up the door. He peeked out through his living room curtains, and even a football I knew and loved shot me a puzzled look for a few minutes before he finally opened the door. I flew into him and gave my brother Bear a big hug. Dude seemed tense. "Friend!" I exclaimed. "Rose, you're here," he replied. "Of course, dude." He made us plans for the trip down to the hour. You have got a mad organization since we last spoke. I settled into the coziness of the couch, and I could find his place, living room, and let the snug air of his new place flood my senses. It was blissful. I had to admire what he had done with the place. It seemed like the intention of years of settling, not some place he had just signed a lease for. "Well," I started. "Clearly, you're tucked in, big, with the new gig. All that's left for you now is finding a girlfriend so you can do all that building a family nonsense everyone is yapping about." "Yeah. Hey, let me get you some coffee, alright?" He walked into the kitchen. More curt than I remember he ever been. I wonder if his girlfriend comment threw him off. It was just a joke, friend. He returned moments later, coffee in his hand. He handed me one of the mugs and then sat opposite of me on the other sofa. "So, I gotta say this. area, town, little city. Google isn't helpful. This neighborhood is quite petite. He looked out the window. Yeah, no, it's interesting. I waited for him to break from his stare. He wasn't being particularly hostile. I interrupted with more small talk. Well, how have you settled in? How's life? He leaned back in his chair and scratched the back of his head. Yeah, I'm settling fine. It's been busy. Definitely spent most of my time thinking about work. Yeah, tell me about that. You've been pretty tip-lip about it on text. Is the job everything you hoped for it'd be? Not exactly. I poker faced through the uncomfortable silence, hoping he would say more. He finally continued. It's definitely not what I studied. Nothing at all like what they pitched to me either. It's pretty out there. Well, what are you doing exactly? He hesitated. I could tell he was escaping up into his head. I think my coffee needs a bit more cream. BRB. He left the room. Yes, he's the kind of guy to say the acronym out loud. I pondered about his absence. Dude was a secret super genius who could land a gig just about anywhere. A job that requires him to move to the middle of nowhere and leave his loved ones behind had to be nothing short of aptitude. But hearing it now, he seemed tired, uninspired even. I wondered how long this move was really gonna last. I stopped myself from interrupting farther. This was too much honest reflection for what was supposed to be a vacation. A selfie was in order. I pulled out my phone, coffee in Bryce's hands, welcoming the board in the background. I already had the caption in my Instagram post. Finally, found him, guys. I waited for him to round the corner. He emerged. I click, snap. The light flashed to immortalize a pretty deeply looking. The Bryce mug caught a middle fall. With his hand stretched out violently, screamed, "No!" I paralyzed by his scream. I turned to clock the shattered mug and liquid coffee being spilled into his hardwood floor. Shit. I looked up at him. Sorry. What happened? Did I just... His attention turned from me to the front door. He ran to it, checked the lock, then pulled at the door as if to test its integrity. He did the same with the balcony door, muttering to himself along the way. I'm so stupid. Of course she was going to take a picture. Why would I be so careless? I should have known. I should have fucking known. Hey. I walked up to him. It's just a selfie, Bri. I'm sorry if it caught you off guard. He took a deep breath, then spoke in a tone that was very becoming of Bryce. I knew. It's my fault. I'm the moron. You always take pictures. It's what you fucking do. And what did I do? I left you alone twice. I fucked us. Sorry, but you're being incredibly rude right now. Explain yourself. A stern look. We're not supposed to take photos. I raised my eyebrows. Not supposed to take photos of what? Your house? Anything in the town at all. I became convinced this was all an elaborate bit. He's been planning an tactic of my arrival, and I chuckled accordingly. That sounds Stupid. I touched the softness turned to his eyes. I was hoping I'd get the chance to ease you into the explanation, but fuck, there's no easy way to break it to you, is there? What on earth are you talking about? His glance turned to the living room window. He stared out for what felt like an eternity. I did with him, secretly wondering if my friend had become a head case since I last saw him. He'd never shown signs of being particularly paranoid or violent, but maybe something had changed since the move. The sounds of soft tapping against the window wasn't immediately obvious. When I finally noticed it, I saw a house in the yard below. Someone, or rather something, was outside, stretching and reaching to try to peer into our elevated living room window. "Hide behind the sofa," said Bryce. "Are you for real?" The desperation in his voice was convincing. To say the least, I followed the orders and crouched against the end of the sofa I was just sitting on. I peeked ever so slightly to watch Bryce approach the window.